There's always like an awkward moment where I'm waiting for it to go live and I can't tell, and then the 5 seconds pass and it drives me crazy. But everybody knows that there are certain inevitabilities in life. Sometimes that means the end of life, just like a good story and good food, it comes to an end. You digest the food, or you finish the book, and then you cry a lot, and it's fine. You should be open. You should be able to express your emotions. But right now, if we were asking EarthGang about Ready to Die, they'd be showing us their new single that's coming off of their new album, Mirrorland, which is coming out September 6th. As of today, that's 4 days away since it's September 2nd. Now, the cool thing about this is that, for one, we finally get to know when this album's coming out because I feel like they've been talking about it since like the year started. I think I talked about their single with Young Thug, Proud of You, in February. It is now September, and we finally get to hear this album. I'm not complaining about the album rollout or anything. I think it's perfectly fine for them to take their time, especially because it's artistic expression and you kind of want to get that right, especially in an age and era where we are able to insanely scrutinize things to like the most minute detail. And I mean, you shouldn't really worry about that when you're making art, but that's not what matters. Ready to Die is a very nihilistic take on the idea of death and how EarthGang approaches it with Dr. Dot and our man Venus, Johnny Venus, excuse me, is again, like I said, a nihilistic take. They look at death as this sort of thing that is inevitable, which is true. This is technically true, but they don't really illustrate it in sort of um, any kind of hopeful light. There's not really much optimism here beyond Johnny Venus, I believe, telling his nephew slash nephew sister to pretty much keep your eyes out for those who would take advantage of you. Because if death is inevitable, that means that people are going to take advantage of a bunch of things in life. But it doesn't seem like they subscribe to answering the question of are we born to live or die. That just simply rests within the chorus. They kind of just talk about the fact that, they kind of just ask the question, are we born to live or do we live to die, and sort of bounce around that idea, but kind of just use life as an instrument of enjoyment until they inevitably perish. And they sort of question the idea of anybody being really that special in the grand scheme of things. And this got me thinking about what the album could be about. And I've looked at the title of the album because, you've heard it about 50 billion times at this point, Mirrorland. And the idea that, we're constantly reflecting. If you were in a land of mirrors, usually that would mean that you're seeing your reflection in almost everything because there's a mirror everywhere. Sometimes metaphorically, that mirror is other people, our friends, our family, people that we love, people that we can't stand. There's something that they reflect that we either enjoy or detest because we might have it inside of ourselves. And so, Mirrorland, I am potentially assuming, is going to be about some type of reflection. And maybe that's just an overarching theme, or maybe it's more of a subtle theme that they're not really going to touch on too much. Beyond the nihilistic take, there's the soundscape has this very dark feeling to it, and it's cool. Like, it has this very haunting these haunting tones that float in and out. It sort of sounds like if someone took a wind chime and kind of made it creepy. And the cool thing is the music video actually features these very same things. It usually is from a famous movie that either was a horror movie or depicted violence. Typically, they kind of don't stray too far from that. There's the references to Pulp Fiction. There is the reference to, why is the name escaping me, even though we know it, with the Here's Johnny scene. I know this movie and I feel so stupid that I cannot remember it right now. But yeah, the movie where the dude's like, Here's Johnny. And then there's even a reference to Psycho. There's all these references to horror movies and the idea that death is not just kind of a peaceful thing. It never is. Sometimes that someone is going to inevitably get hurt because of it. quite literally and emotionally for anybody else who may or may not know them. But yeah, it seems as though EarthGang in it sort of embraces death, even though they don't really look at it as necessarily a positive thing. They do sort of use the idea that since I'm ready to die at any time, I can do anything. And so, in a weird way, it kind of does turn into sort of a potentially, this is a reach, this is a Mr. Fantastic. My arm just went across screen. I wish like I could like somehow edit a live stream so my arm was like right here, but it's not. Um, but yeah, the idea of death and how it affects us is a question that a lot of people ponder all the time. Once we find out what it is, when we're kids, we're like, what's that? And then we find out and we're like, oh God, can we just avoid that? And then we get older and our ideas of remaining immortal continue to kind of plague. Well, it does depend on who you are, it depends on what you do, it depends on how you feel about death. Because for some people, um, they want to stay immortal. For some people, they feel as though death is just a part of life. For some people, they feel as though they're ready to die now and they might be a young person. Unfortunately, there are those people, and I would hope for those who feel as though their life has no meaning or anything of that nature to try to find someone that can help you out, because most of the time you can make a big impact on yourself, and sometimes that's the most important thing. Don't neglect yourself or feel as though you're not worth anything. But yeah, being ready to die is it's a very, it's a weird, it's not a weird topic, but it's kind of, it really depends on the person, I would say. And I think when it comes to Earth Gang, they look at it through this lens, this perspective of, well, living in the war, the low key war zone of potentially the hood, or any other situation where death is kind of always a regularity. It doesn't have the same impact that it would on someone who lives in a safer place. So yeah, being ready to die, it's kind of dark, but it can be potentially optimistic. It all depends on how you look at death and how you feel about it. Well, this guy says, hopefully this sashimi thoughts wasn't fatal, or from the confusion. Uh, but be ready to live, because you never know when good things are gonna come.